Hey everyone, this is Nick with Twisted Wrister Hockey. I'm here in Nashville. I've come all the way from California to watch the Nashville Predators take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Let's go inside and watch an excellent game tonight.
Alright everyone, so now I'm actually back in California after my trip to Nashville. So before talking about the actual game that I went to there, which was of course the highlight, I had an awesome time in Nashville. I went just before Thanksgiving. I went in there on a Sunday. I unfortunately had a cold before I actually took off, and so I was battling that the whole time, but I was able to, with the help of some good food, some good people, some good adult beverages, I was able to enjoy my time there, have a really good time at the hockey game and at Bridgestone Arena, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. It was my first time in Nashville, my first time in the state of Tennessee. Nashville is Music City. It's very known for its country music in particular, but I mean, you can also get other types of music by just kind of going around downtown. This first picture right here is from the Capitol building there. So yeah, I wanted to make sure I saw some sights, saw some main attractions out there. Nashville is home to Andrew Jackson, a great US president. His original home, I think, is somewhere in the city limits or just outside of it. I didn't actually get to go to that, but that's his bust there behind me. Davy Crockett was also born on a mountaintop in Tennessee, and he was one of those who were protecting the Alamo back during the Texas War of Independence there. And yeah, I was in downtown Nashville. It was walkable. I was very close to some of the main attractions, being Bridgestone Arena, being close to the Country Music Hall of Fame there, also being close to Broadway Street, which is where a lot of bands perform at night. It's amazing because like literally you go into each one of these bars and there's always live music there all the time, and it's very good. I'll talk about that in a bit too. So about 10 minutes away from my hotel, it was the Country Music Hall of Fame. Now, I myself, I'm not like a huge country music fan, but I've definitely gained an appreciation for it since I've been to Nashville and I've been to Austin and like just been driving through Texas. You kind of just like almost acquire an interest in that, even if you're a fan of other types of music. Like I myself, I listen to metal, I listen to rap, and now I'm like, you know what? There's some country out there that I actually enjoy. So yeah, there's a lot of Predators branding around town. There are a lot of signs inside of shops, posters, flags, all that good stuff. So it really feels like the Predators have been embraced by the whole city of Nashville. This was the car that was used in Smokey and the Bandit 2 with the late Burt Reynolds. So yeah, I got to see all these really cool artifacts from country music just over the years. I mean, some of the artifacts are actually dating back into the 1800s in the earlier days of kind of country or even blues music or jazz or ragtime. So a lot of different genres of music spun off of some of the roots musics that were, introduced to the United States even before the Civil War. So that's going back a really long time. This is just a shot of the outside of Bridgestone Arena. Of course, you see the Jack Daniels logo. Jack Daniels is distilled in Tennessee, and I actually got to go to the distillery. I'll talk about that soon, too. And yeah, this is me outside of Bridgestone Arena. I was there to see the Predators play the Tampa Bay Lightning. Coming to Bridgestone Arena, this is, I think, the 5th arena that I've been to in my life. So, obviously, I'm a Sharks fan, and I live really close to the Shark Tank, so I go there all the time. But I've been to, I think, the first arena that the Coyotes played in. I've been to TD Garden, so in Boston. I've also been to Tampa, and I have a video on that. That was a lot of fun. This is the first arena for a team in the Central Division that I've been to. The city is really big on the Predators. They've been very successful in their 20 years, I'd say. Even though they've not won the Stanley Cup, they've been very competitive, and they've always been a team that kind of performs better with some of its parts than just, with its individual talent. But now they've really just built an amazing core of players. I mean, from Pekka Rinne, I guess he's kind of the anchor of that over the years. You know, Ryan Ellis, PK Subban came a couple years ago, Philip Forsberg, Victor Arvidsson, and they have a ton of talent in addition to that too, Ryan Johansson. I mean, they are probably the deepest team in the NHL, if not one of them. And obviously they're very distinct with their gold jerseys. So I had bought one of those from Dick's Sporting Goods just before then. I wanted to make sure I fit in. And, I had to add a Predators jersey to the collection too. It was a sellout crowd, and I think that maybe there might have been a few empty seats, but really it was basically like everybody was on hand. Everybody was there to watch hockey. That's what I really gathered from this. Comparing this to really even going to a Sharks game, I don't always get that sense from the crowd there. As much as I love my Sharks fans, I mean, there are many, many good ones out there. I mean, not everybody there is going to be watching the game, chanting along and dissecting the game as much. And I think that the Nashville fans were actually really engaged right from the face-off and all the way through the contest. One of the things that blew me away is actually this jersey conveyor. So I would assume that one day with enough funds in Patreon that Shannon, the hockey guy, would probably purchase something like this. Of course, with Nashville, we know that they like to get really loud. They have a lot of different little chants. I mean, it's kind of funny because a lot of their chants involve saying "you suck" to the other team, but it's not in a way that's supposed to be like condemning or condescending. It's just part of a really fun, lively atmosphere, I'd say. You know, when the Predators score a goal, you hear Tim McGraw, you hear, "I like it, I love it, I want some more of it," and people are singing along to that. People are pretty amped up. I mean, during the game, when there's a close call, when there's a shot on goal that like hits off the post, everybody's into it. Everybody's really tied into the action there. I was very impressed by the enthusiasm of the fans there. Yeah, I mean, overall, really solid game. All the Nashville fans were chanting pretty much the whole time. They all stood on their feet in the last minute of the game to like, in the stadium, man, that stadium can get really loud. I was very blown away. It just like all of a sudden went to this level that I wouldn't have expected necessarily in a regular season game unless they were like playing like a bitter rival like a Chicago or something like that. So, I mean, kudos to the Nashville fans. They really brought it for sure. Bridgestone Arena was a lot of fun. The team store was really cool. I picked up a souvenir puck and a beer koozie, so a couple trinkets to come away with there. Food-wise, I don't really think that they had that many food options. I mean, I'm a little bit spoiled being out in California because the Shark Tank has a lot of really various diverse food options. Like they have a Greek station, they have Korean hamburgers or something like that. They have this like really good burrito station. So this was a little bit more typical fare from what I saw out there. But I mean, it was very accessible. People were super friendly, and yeah, everybody was rocking their Nashville Predators gear. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the scoring. So 5:10 into the first period, Victor Hedman scored his 4th goal of the season from Braden Point, and Eric Cernak, I don't know how to say his last name. 10 minutes later at 15:19, Kyle Turris on the power play from Kalle Järnkrok and Matthias Ekholm. Then in the second period, 6:43, you had Philip Forsberg, the wonderful Philip Forsberg, scoring his 13th goal of the season from Ekholm and Ryan Johansson. And then Ryan Johansson scored what would be the game-winning goal a few minutes later at 10:16 from Craig Smith and Roman Josi, the captain. In the third period, Nikita Kucherov would net his 8th goal of the year at 3:25 from Braden Point and Ryan McDonough. Then one of the days we decided to kind of go off the beaten path, and we took a shuttle all the way to Lynchburg, kind of in the south of Tennessee, and we went to the Jack Daniel Distillery. So I always say Jack Daniels like it's plural, but his name was actually Jack Daniel. Here's the actual front of the distillery there. So it's in what's called Lynchburg, Tennessee, which is like population, I think 360 about. So it's a really tiny town, and this is basically the town. You know, pretty much everybody works at Jack Daniels or works at like a little souvenir shop or restaurant or something like that really close by that has, goods and produce that's associated with Jack Daniels. And so it's amazing to see this just run this little town, but the town itself is kind of preserved in this old kind of country, rural way of life too. And by the way, I know that we have some viewers here who are younger than 21 or might not be interested in something like this. I mean, I just see this, from a kind of a cultural standpoint, cultural significance, historical significance, because obviously this has been a big part of Tennessee's economy, especially in this region here. So it was really neat seeing a piece of this history. And in this photo here, this is one of the still houses where I think at least 20,000, if not 40,000 barrels could be there fermenting, making whiskey. We were fortunate to be there on a day in which they were actually creating their own charcoal. So you're probably familiar with what a bourbon is. You might be familiar with what a Scotch is or an Irish whiskey, like what the differences are between that. Now, Jack Daniels isn't just selling itself as a bourbon. It's actually what's considered a Tennessee whiskey. And part of that attribute of being a Tennessee whiskey is being able to produce your very own charcoal. So yeah, all this wood, a lot of it's going to be burned down and converted into charcoal, and then that charcoal will be used for what's called mellowing. When the whiskey actually passes through the charcoal, kind of collects some additional smokier attributes, and then goes into that kind of longer term fermentation. This right here is actually what was considered Jack Daniel's office. So this has been, preserved through all this time. It's amazing. You even get to see this very notorious safe that he kept there. So apparently Jack Daniel unfortunately died from complications of gangrene, and basically that was a result of him kicking his safe in frustration one day, breaking his toe, and then that led to gangrene. That led to like amputations, and then he died of like an infection from that. So just a word to the wise, never kick your safe. We got to see the bottling plant there and, take pictures. Not everything is actually bottled at this site, but any Jack Daniels that you see is actually bottled in the state of Tennessee. So I think that there are a total of 5 counties that actually bottle and run distribution operations for Jack Daniel. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing how all of this is actually contained in the state of Tennessee. There are other whiskeys out there that might be actually produced or bottled in other states and other countries even. Well, this is all being carried out in Tennessee, so I think that's pretty amazing. This is one of the original barrel houses. I think the front of the barrel house is still like actively used for fermenting, but the back of it is actually used as a tasting room. So we got to go in there and do some tasting. So one of the whiskeys here is actually a Frank Sinatra branded whiskey. So that's the only time in Jack Daniel's history in which they've actually had, somebody's name on a bottle like that. Frank Sinatra was a huge fan of Jack Daniel's. That's apparently the only whiskey he would drink. He declared that in his shows as the nectar of the gods, and he was actually buried with a bottle of Jack Daniel's. And so the distillery decided to actually, kind of capitalize on that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, these were all pretty good, high quality. There were a couple that were, single barrel batches, which is usually, the mark of kind of a higher quality whiskey. And by the way, what you see here is like the amount that they gave me. So it's not like each glass was full of whiskey this whole time. I mean, they were just like little thimble full tastes. So yeah, I was definitely in control, and I had safe transportation. So just something important to note. And then in addition to distilleries, I also wanted to sample some of the local beers. There is Jackalope here, so that's kind of one of the main breweries that you find in Nashville. And you also find Yazoo, so I had a couple of beers from those places. It was pretty good. I also went to a third brewery. I forgot which one it was called. It was called Bearded Iris. It was really good. I found a citrus IPA there that is among one of the best India Pale Ales I've ever tasted. Nashville was definitely an interesting city. I was fortunate to walk around a little bit. I got to see neighborhoods like the Gulch. I got to see neighborhoods like where Vanderbilt University is located. That's where this photo is here. I even walked over by the football stadium there. If you're a football fan, you might not know this, but Derek Mason, who played for the Titans and who played for the Baltimore Ravens, he's actually the head coach for Vanderbilt. I found that pretty interesting. So it was cool just kind of happening upon that. And then, of course, what would be a trip to Nashville without some good live music? So my girlfriend and I went into a couple of clubs, and we saw some country, and we saw some jazz, and we saw some blues here. So this is a blues band that was really, really good. I definitely enjoyed their music. The country was great as well. I mean, like I said, you go to any bar on that strip of Broadway and there's going to be country music there. It's going to be crowded at just about any time of the evening, pretty much any day of the week. So it's really cool to be a part of that. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where you hang out, you see a few songs, obviously you tip the band if you can, and then you kind of go to the next bar and see the next act. So, I mean, that was a really cool experience there. Some of the food there was incredible. I mean, man, I could have like a separate video alone on Nashville food. So when I was there, we had the staple, we had fried catfish. You know, those some of those Predators fans like to throw catfish onto the ice. So had some fried catfish, had some Nashville Hot Chicken, which is fried chicken that's super spicy. It's covered in a rub or a batter that has like cayenne pepper in it. So we had that. Definitely got our fix of that. Got my collard greens, got my red beans and grits, these like jalapeno cheese grits, super good. At the Jazz Club, I had this really amazing lobster bisque. I don't know if anybody out there likes that, but it was probably the best soup I've ever had. It was just so decadent and just full of lobster flavor, and just, oh man, it really blew me away there. Food in Nashville was really good. I had barbecue, you know, I had pork, I had sausage. I pretty much ate my face off there. So yeah, overall, a very satisfying trip to Nashville. Just people there are so friendly. I live out here on the coast, and, you know, people here are, you know, there are definitely some good people, but in general, it's kind of hard to really connect with people because it's a faster pace of lifestyle, and so, like, people just aren't really interested in kind of, you know, having, like, real conversations. I mean, whereas if you go to Nashville, if you go to Texas, if you go to Minnesota, like in the middle of the country, you can definitely tell that there's a difference. Being a tourist and a visitor definitely helps. People want to accommodate you and whatnot. But I mean, I think that people, you know, always give each other the benefit of the doubt out there. So it was really good just kind of interacting with some different people and getting to know a new city for sure. I would definitely go back there. I definitely got to tip my cap to Tennessee. I got to say thanks to y'all for showing me a good time. I'll come back and watch some country, watch some Predators hockey, and eat some more catfish and drink some more whiskey in the process too. So yeah, everybody, so what would be the next NHL city that you want to visit? Let me know in the comments below.
Well, my friends, it was a terrific game. The Preds came on top against the Lightning 3-2 on 29 saves from Pecorine. This crowd is excellent. They're just as I've heard them on TV, and I've had a really good time here at Bridgestone Arena. I would definitely come back. I hope you can even hear me through this video. Terrific game, great atmosphere, very good fans, very good people. On both sides too. I've been to Tampa before. I had a really good time with those fans. Alright guys, this has been Nick with Twisted Wrister Hockey. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon.